Good morning, traders. This is Dennis Dick, and this is Premarket Info. On today's show, we're going to look at we're in earnings season still, and there's lots of companies that have been reporting. Last night we had American Express, eBay, IBM, Qualcomm, Yum, and MLNX. This morning, Morgan Stanley, Verizon, and Southwest reported numbers. Tonight we got Microsoft, Google, AMD, and then tomorrow we've got General Electric. We'll discuss all of these earnings reports right here on the show right now. Actually, and then we also are going to discuss Bill Ackman. He's disclosed his $1.8 billion position in Procter & Gamble, which has been driving the stock higher for the last few days. But first, let's take a look here at the S&P futures. We are trading up just a bit here this morning, trading up 5.75 at 1373. As you can see, the uptrend here is still intact. We're still in this channel, continuing to move towards the upper end of the channel here now. 1375 was the high back on July the 5th. That's going to be the first area of a little bit of resistance. Once we get above there, then we've got to go back out here. The next major high actually is 1385, which was set on May the 4th. So we have a little bit of air when we start to get about 1375. Moving down to the specific stocks that reported, let's start with IBM, the big one here. Surprising the street because the stock had been selling off for the last basically 2 months ahead of this report. But yesterday it did rally, so maybe somebody got tipped off that the numbers weren't going to be that bad, or maybe they got nervous if they were short and covered. It was a good cover if they did, because the stock is trading up at 193 this morning after closing at 188.25. First spot we look at here is the high set on July the 6th at 193.94. That could come into play here today. Then we talk about this whole 195 area. That could be thick there too as it thickens up. You had 3 lows there right in that area back in early July. If you get above that area, then you can start looking at this 197.20 was the high on July the 2nd. 196.34 July the 3rd, and 196.85 July the 5th. So call all that area 197. That's 4 points away from here. I don't think the stock's going to get that much momentum, but it is up almost 5 points here in the pre-market already. So hard to say. We're a ways away. It's from the open here yet. So the pre-market could change quite a bit. And obviously, once you get the real players coming in when the day starts, it could really push the stock around. eBay also reported last night. This stock was wild after the report. Actually traded down into the 38 handle, believe it or not. We talked about those couple of lows down there at 38. Bounced right off of there in the pre-market, started to get some momentum, and just started flying. Stock this morning now is trading at 43.10, so great move here for eBay. Keep an eye on the June 19th high of 43.94. That whole 44 area could provide some initial resistance, but this stock appears to be going to test that upper end of the range after bouncing off the lower end of the range last night after the report. American Express also reported last night. Stock, we've highlighted this trend here where the stock has been trending up. It is looking like it could open down here. They did beat, but the revenue was a little bit light, and I think that's what's putting the stock under a bit of pressure here this morning. Not a lot of shares traded though. Stock is trading at $58 after closing at $58.29. So look at this trend line here. The bottom of the trend line would be about 57.52. So if you want to play it off of this trend, that's where you could be looking to buy if it gets down to that area. It starts to cut through there, then the trend would be broken and I would get nervous. Qualcomm also reported there last night. That stock is moving higher here significantly in the pre-market. The earnings were in line, but they're moving quite a bit higher here anyways. Stock has formed a nice double bottom here. If you look at the daily, stock really formed some nice support in this whole 54 to 55 area. Kind of broke out yesterday with the overall tech sector. A lot of your tech stocks were running yesterday. But today this stock is really going to be flying. 59.35, so it's trading up here. If we look back to these multiple highs from early June, we had a high of 59.45 on June the 12th. we had a high of 59.69 on June the 13th. So that whole area could provide some initial resistance for the stock. I kind of think the stock has 60 on the mind though, and if it does start to take out that 60, there's this gap down area where it's really moved down quickly if we go back onto May the 16th. So we always say when the stock moves down quickly through an area, it can move up quickly through that same area. The high on that day was 61.93, so if this thing starts to significantly trade above 60, could have 61.93 on the radar. Getting to, there was one more last night, MLNX, and this looks like it's going to be your big mover of the day. They reported, it's just a small company, Mellonix Technologies, but they blew the numbers away, made 99 cents against analyst estimates of 74. The revenue came in 150 million from 105 million. So this stock really is flying here in the pre-market. 96.93. This, I believe, is an all-time high for this stock. It was trading, if we go back here just even to this year, early in last year, was trading down the $20, $30 area, trading $96 now. So the stock is absolutely flying. Could have $100 on the radar, but hard to say. These high flyers, this thing's probably going to have a 10-point range, I would imagine, when the intraday session starts, maybe larger than that even. One more report last night was Yum. Yum Brands, obviously your Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC. 65.55 is where it closed. It's trading down right now. They missed 67 cents versus 70 is where where they came in at. That was light, obviously. It's trading 64.5 right now. Did trade down to 64 just a little bit ago. I'd look at these couple of double bottoms here at 63.84 and 63.83 from July 16th and July 17th. So look at that area for some initial support. If it starts to take that double bottom out, you've got a lot of air below. So it might be a play to play it through that too. If it starts to take that out, you really don't have a heck of a lot of support until you get down to the July 13th low of 62.80. Morgan Stanley reported here this morning, and they disappointed. Figures. Declining trading revenue they were blaming. They made 16 cents versus analyst estimates of 29. So terrible quarter for Morgan Stanley here. I'm just going to highlight here these lows here from back June 26, 13.30. We're actually trading below that right now. So if it can't find support there in the regular session, could really start to get ugly. I would think it would see 13, and then if you get below 13, obviously if it really went into sell-off mode, 12.26 being the 52-week low here, and 12.29 you have a double bottom down there. So great support, 90 cents down from where it's trading right now. But if you're picking a bottom here, just be careful. Stock has not performed well. A lot of your other brokers actually didn't do that bad. Goldman Sachs did pretty good. Morgan Stanley not doing good. Blaming trading revenue. We know the trading's been light. The volumes have been light, so somewhat predictable that their trading revenue would be light as well. Verizon just reported here just a few minutes ago. Stock actually trading down significantly on the report. Blipped up off the initial report, but then traded down. It's trading at 45.15 right now, so a big pullback for Verizon here. The numbers were in line. I guess they wanted a beat. It's really had a march, obviously. But this is another one of those deals where you've got a higher dividend, lower beta stock, and it wouldn't surprise me if it did find some buyers like the Abbott Labs did the other day. When you get these stocks that have been running and you get pullbacks on these, it seems like they find buyers. Although there's not a heck of a lot of support in here, if you get down to this 44, there's major support. So if we were really to go into sell-off mode, there's major support down in 44, but I don't think it's going to see that today. It wouldn't surprise me if buyers did come into this issue off the hop and start to drive it higher, because value investors are just swarming these types of stocks. They can't make money in their bank accounts. They can't make money in treasury bills. They're putting it into higher dividend stocks with lower betas, and this is one of those issues. So it wouldn't surprise me if it does find some value investors today to try to take the stock back even to positive. LUV, which is Southwest Airlines, they just reported here a little while ago as well. They beat, actually excluding items, they didn't beat on the bottom line, but then when you exclude the items, they did beat. 36 cents versus 33 cents. So LUV trading up off of that report at $9.72 right now after closing at $9.42. Looking at this high back from July the 10th, $9.77 was the high that day. That's going to be your first area of major resistance. If we get above that area, I would say this possibly might have $10 on the mind. We topped out a couple of times if we go back into early February at 10.05 on February the 3rd, and if we go back to February the 10th at $9.99. So that whole, in early February, that whole $10 area might provide you some resistance if we do in fact get above that 978 high that I just highlighted. Travelers Group also reported here this morning. Stock is actually trading just flat. No trades here as of yet to report. So it will be interesting to see where this one goes once the regular session starts. You do have tons of highs here. I'm just going to actually draw this on the chart because this looks like a real type of resistance area. Looking just out to here, you had, I don't even know how many days this topped out, around 65 bucks, but 65.27. Just going to grab a few random highs here. He had the overall high 65.27, but just below 65 you had multiple highs. So wouldn't surprise me if that whole $65 area gives you some pretty decent resistance off the hop. If the stock starts to pull back, you can start to look at yesterday's low of 63.01. We do have a lot of companies that are going to be reporting earnings here tonight. The big one is Google. Google's going to be reporting after the bell. Stock is trading up ahead of their numbers here this morning. It's up $5.74, trading at $586.50. The big number on Google has been 600 bucks. It got there $600.06 on July the 5th. Back in late May, this had multiple lows just around this whole $600 area, just slightly through a $597, $598, $600 area. So $600, if this is a good report, will be a big number for that. If they really blow the numbers away, then you can start looking at this whole area where we were around 617, 618, where we had multiple highs in early May. If the number is bad, keep an eye on all these lows that we set just below 557, 557.35 on June the 25th. You had a low of 557.21 on June the 28th. You had a low of 559 on June 18th. You had a low of 557.09 on June 15th. And then the low of the move, 556.52 on June the 14th. So call that whole area 557 major and critical support for Google to hold. And obviously I'm not giving these numbers. I don't think it's going to get to those levels here today, but we're giving these numbers for after hours because obviously we don't have a show there tonight. So Google here after hours, if you're trading it, keep an eye on 600 and 557. Microsoft also will report after the bell, and there's some key levels to highlight on this one which actually might come into play here today. You had multiple highs here at June 3rd, June 5th, and June the 2nd, 30.62, 30.78, and 30.70. That whole area is where it's trading at right now. It's at $30.70, up 25 cents here in the pre-market. If it takes that level out, I look up to this triple top that we had up here in the 31.14 area. You had a high of 31.11 on June the 19th. You had a high of 31.14 on June the 21st, and you also had a high of 31.05 on June the 20th. So we'll call that area a triple top. If the report is really good and the stock starts to take off after hours, this 32 area might provide you some initial resistance, and then 32.95 is the 52-week high. If the report's bad, keep an eye on the low from July the 12th of 28.64. AMD will also report after the bell as well. For some reason, there's the chart, wasn't coming up there for you guys. $4.87 is where, or $4.89 is where it closed. It's trading at $5 right now. So it's trading up a bit here in the pre-market. This is a stock that has disappointed so many times. The trend has been down. I'd probably be shocked if they actually beat the number or if they really blew the number away. But keep in mind, if it gets above this 5, you do have a lot of air in here. We always talk about air. We came down like a rock from $5.82 to $5. There's not a heck of a lot in there if we start to get back above that $5 area. So you want to be careful if you are shorting that stock and it starts to get above 5, I'd probably get nervous. If it starts to trade below these lows of 474, then Katie bar the door, who knows where we're going. But this is one of those stocks that I just would not want to own. I think rallies still to be sold in this, even if they beat the number. Just too many disappointments, and the stock's been performing too poorly for too long. And then Friday morning, we get the big one. General Electric is going to be reporting earnings. Has had crazy support down here in this 1943 area. It's bottomed here almost 4 times in this 1943 area, so keep an eye on that if you're trading it today or if you're trading it tomorrow morning with the earnings report. It does have a double top if you're trading it today here too. 1986 and 1985 from the last couple of days. And if we also go back to July 13th, topped out in 1987. So you could almost call that area a triple top. We're trading them right there right now at 1989. We get above there, $20 might be on the radar. And then I would look at the whole number of $20.50. If you're trading this pre-market tomorrow with the earnings, keep an eye on the June 29th high of $20.84. Bill Ackman reported his stake in Procter & Gamble of $1.8 billion. This was obviously known that Bill Ackman had a position in Procter & Gamble. That's why the stock has been taking off for the last 4 or 5 trading sessions. We now know that stake. It's $1.8 billion. It's his biggest holding in his portfolio. So the stock actually trading up a little bit on that news, 65.01, but obviously we already knew Ackman was in, so I don't think it's a real market mover here that we now know the size of the position. Do keep an eye on the high from a couple days ago, 65.40, and the high of the move so far has been 65.75. If the stock starts to break down, yesterday's low was 64.35, so you might want to keep an eye on that issue. Overall here, the market is just like we were saying in the overall channel here, continues to drift up. I think we may test the upper end of this channel here, which would probably be up at that 1385 area if we really start to take off today. But 1375 is going to be your first test. That's been the high of the move. You'll probably find a little bit of resistance there, so don't be surprised if the market stalls early, but then finds its legs later. If the market obviously starts to sell off, I think you'll find buyers here in the 1350s. That's our show for today, folks. We'll be back tomorrow to cover GE's earnings, and have a good trading session.